Okay, I'm really excited about this one. I have spent a good chunk. I would say this was 2 or 3 weeks ago. I spent a night or two catching up to a manga called Act Age. It's a manga on Shonen Jump, but it's really different from your traditional Shonen Jump manga. It currently has 69 chapters. The 69th one came out yesterday. Um, and I'm caught up. And this is one of the best series I've read in a long time, so I wanted to share it with y'all, give it a quick little review and synopsis, and hopefully
Yeah,
get more people into it because it's
like
really good.
it's really interesting. Like you described it to us, and I don't think I've heard of another manga that tries to do what this manga does, or with even a very similar premise. It's really cool.
And what makes it work is that it's doing it super well.
Yeah.
So,
What makes it good is that it's good.
well, the premise works because it's good, Joe.
Yeah.
Yes, okay, fine, of course. But okay, let's talk about Act Age, and let's talk about this premise for anyone listening who is new. This is a really new series because 70 chapters is pretty early in a manga's lifespan. It's under 2 years.
Yeah.
It reached the gap where it's hard to get serialized after like 20 or 30. And now it's going pretty strong, and I hope. Apparently, it's selling well, which is really
Yeah.
good. But I
It's
wanted to sell
surviving.
better, and I want when the anime comes out, I want all of you motherfuckers on that. So let's talk about the manga though. So the premise is, it's a series about a character called Yanagi, and she is a female protagonist, which is really rare in Jump. Shonen Jump is mostly a
Yeah. That's
male,
wild.
mostly male teen focused manga. So you don't get girls because they get cooties or whatever.
Yeah. Luckily, Jump's I think been kind of branching out
They really
lately.
have. Ever since 2017, I want to say they're really experimenting with series, and they had a section where like they published out so many series and then canceled a bunch of them. So they just threw a bunch of series out into the wild, and they kept what stuck, which is
Some really
kind
good
of,
ones.
it's a volatile way to do it, but it gave us really fresh series. So it's about acting, and specifically the main character uses method acting, and some of the other characters also specialize in that, but then there's also just normal characters. And it's a series about acting, so is that intense? Is it good? It's written with the sensibilities of a battle shonen, which is like a battle series where it's not over the top, but it's structured in a way where it's like you're getting better. You have another group of actors that are around your age, and you're all rivals, and you're all striving to one up each other, and you're striving to be the best actor you can be. So it gets that going, which the plots he builds out of this. The author is a male. The artist is a female, and she's only 22, so she is a god.
Yeah, she's doing really good for that early.
Because the first thing I wanted to mention is the art, where the art in this is fucking gorgeous. It's really good at showing emotion, and it's good at portraying minute inflections where like when an actor's acting, you can tell they're not being themselves, right? Like you can they can bring you into their acting, and you can forget that there's someone else. But when you watch them in an interview, they're acting differently, obviously.
Yeah, you showed me some scans of some expressions people had and kind of the context for them. And yeah, she's really good at showing emotion in her art, which is always important, but it's, I think, extra important for this particular manga.
For sure. And I was saying they can also portray the difference between someone's face when they're acting and when they're not, which I feel like is a really slight thing you have to do, but I feel like she's nailing it.
Yeah.
So that's really good. I want to talk about the main character because she's one of the best protagonists in just about anything I've read, like, or watched. She's really good, and she kind of carries the whole thing because she's so fantastic. I think she has dethroned Jolene as my favorite female protagonist, which is really big to say because I fucking love Jolene from JoJo's. So let's talk about Yonagi. So she's just really interesting in general, where her personality is like, she's kind of fun and adorkable, but also really intense and determined. So because of her personality, she doesn't really have many friends at high school, but she's like this gorgeous, aloof girl who like Everyone looks at her from a distance. They're like, "Oh wow, she's really pretty and amazing," but inside she's just kind of awkward around people.
Yeah.
And part of this is because of her backstory, where she has to raise her siblings alone because her mother was an actress and she died, and her father is a deadbeat who left them. Right, so she has to work all the time to raise her two little kid siblings. They're like probably like 6 to 8 is probably their age range, so they're really young. That's a backstory, by the way. That's always gonna work for me. It's like, yeah, I don't care how many times that's been used. Like, working for your siblings, always a good starting point for a character, I think. Because of that, she couldn't really connect with other people because she's always thinking about, about her siblings. So she's always taking part-time jobs.
Yeah. It's like how many other kids in her class are dealing with that situation, you know?
Exactly. Like, it's pretty unique for her. And so as she's growing up, to cope with the death of her mother and being alone, she kind of loses herself in watching films. And she kind of starts losing herself in these movies, which is how she unknowingly learns how to method act, where she kind of absorbs emotions from what she's seeing. And the thing that keeps Kei Yonagi from being like a Mary Sue, because when she's with other people, she's so adorable and she's like awkward in all the best ways, and it's like, oh, this could be a little bit like too good of a character, like she's too fun to watch. And something that balances her out is like, because she's so unwillingly like stuck to method acting, she's kind of got a dark side to her, where she dives so deep into acting where it takes her a while to snap out of her emotions.
Yeah, and it could harm. It has the potential to harm like some kind of social interactions or relationships.
Very much so. Where the first chapter, one of the talent agencies is like, they watch her act and they're like, that girl is dangerous. She acts in a way that is harmful to herself. So from chapter 1, there's this undercurrent of like, as she's getting better and better, she's coming closer and closer to like potentially doing something harmful because of the way she acts. And there's always like this ticking time bomb in her, which is a great way to raise suspense. To the point where like her siblings find her like scary, and they're like, she fails an audition, and like her little brother's like, big sis, you have to be an actress, because a person who cries for a whole day after absorbing the emotion of sadness from a movie is not a normal person.
Yeah.
Only an actress could be that kind of person, and so you have to be one, or else you're gonna be like, I'm gonna think you're weird, like you're gonna scare me, which is a really cool way to look at it. I think that was pretty early on, and I feel like that was a good way to set up her character flaw. From there, I want to talk about some interesting story bits that tie it all together with this character. So one of her early weaknesses is that she can only play roles that she's experienced, right? So what happens when she gets a role where like she's never experienced anything like this? So she learns the technique of substitution, where she has a commercial where she has to cook dinner for her dad. Her acting style is all experience based. She's never cooked a family dinner for her dad, so she doesn't know how to act that. So she substitutes that emotion for the first time she had to cook for her two little siblings after their mom died. I was like, oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
So the story's early on starting to address some of the weaknesses in her acting. There's this one instance, and I think I told you about this, Bradley, where she has to play someone who would do something terrible that she herself couldn't do.
Oh, man.
So to get around that, she has to create a backstory for this character in her mind that would let her do this horrible thing.
It's so good. It's so good.
The best part is her takeaway from this experience, where she says to herself with a smile, and this is where her intensity comes in from, I never realized how bad of a person I could be. So through the experience, she finds a worse part of herself so that she can become a better actress. And that's the kind of shit we're dealing with. It's so interesting.
From a writing perspective, like, holy shit, you have a character who learns about themselves by being other people.
That's actually, that's a big part of this show, is that she's also learning a lot about herself.
It's crazy.
Through acting. Some of the other characters start showing up. There's other actors and actresses. There's her director slash talent manager, I guess, where he's a really good young director, and he kind of pawns her off to some other directors at first so she can learn how to work with other people. Which is where you start introducing a lot of the other actors, where there's some focal ones that are like more normal, and they have personalities and goals, but they're not like eccentric like Yonagi is. Then you start running into some eccentrics, where there's this method actor who's like her, but even better, where like he goes all out with it, where he has to do it. He's a play actor, and he has to do a play where he's hunting a bear. So what does he do? He goes out in real life and hunts a bear by himself to fully learn that experience. So he dives really deep as well. He's a good foil to her.
Man, one thing I found here, I want to call attention to this one panel that, I was just kind of looking at some stuff. And this isn't super far, it looks like, into the story. She's wearing a Santa hat, and I'm assuming she kind of has to be Santa for something. But she has this, like, kind of really half worried, half earnest expression on her face where she's like, I have no idea how Santa feels. So she's like, I don't know how I'm going to play this character, kind of. And, it doesn't feel like some pretentious method actor, like, oh, I have to really, know how the character feels. Like, she's lost. Like, she can't she can't play a character unless she knows how they feel. And that's just who she is. She's like she's worried. She's like, I have no idea how Santa feels. How am I going to do this?
That's absolutely like her. Yeah. That's her big character flaw. She doesn't know how to be a normal human sometimes, and so she's subconsciously learned how to method act as a coping mechanism, and now she's kind of learning how to deal with that as a 17-year-old. I think she is. It's really good. Another character worth bringing up is she meets an actress that becomes her closest friend and rival. She's like the perfect actress, where I would say she has less of a range than Yonagi, but like she comes in, she does a role that people would kind of expect from her. I'm trying to think of a real life analog, but it's hard to say. I guess she's kind of typecasted, where she comes in, she does this role, but she does it perfect, and she does it so well that she like makes sure the production schedule is up to date, and like she tries to smoothen things out so that the final product between the filming and the editing, and the writing, she gets involved in all of that so it can be the smoothest possible product. And she eventually starts getting jealous of how Yonagi can become other people completely. And she's getting this arc now where she's delving into method acting now to kind of try to learn how Yonagi's doing it. And it's super interesting. I don't want to get too much into it, but like this character, Chiyoko, I have high hopes for her in the future. And like the story arcs in this, the last thing I want to bring up, the story arcs are so freaking good, where one of the big first arcs is like a death game. This was introducing a lot of characters where everyone's playing the death game, and she has to feel sad and sacrifice herself for this girl Chiyoko that I just brought up. And she's like, I don't think I really like this girl, because she doesn't really like me. I don't know what the positives of her are. She eventually learns what they are. She's able to act it out. It was a really good introductory arc to the series. And then they go into this theater arc, where this shit is borderline like, the writing in this is really good, where they're doing this play about a train that goes into the afterlife. It's called, I forgot what it's called. It's a Japanese book. It's a real book, so you can look up the summary, and then you get like a deeper understanding to what's going on in the story as well. And one of the kids, like, the train shows up one day and it's taking them to the galaxy, and one of the kids on it is like just kind of going along for the ride. He does not sure what's going on, and the other kid's dead. He died in a water-based, like he drowned in trying to save someone else, and she has to play this kid who drowned and who knows they're dead. So she has to play someone who is the symbol of like mortality and death. So the way that she learns to do this is by shadowing a man who has cancer and is about to die, which
Oh man.
from everything I've explained about this character, you could see how this is kind of a scary thought, where she gets in the scope of someone who is dying in order to play this, and it was such a powerful arc early on where it was like, oh wait, this is now one of my favorites. To follow up something that bombastic though, the author is smart, and they do like a little mini school life arc where her director is like, hey, no more acting for you. Go make a friend in school. Go be a normal girl. You've been too into this acting, and I know it can be dangerous to you. I've been warned about it by other talent agencies that I need to look out for you. So she does. And in this arc, one of the most interesting things is you get to see how people see her, not only before she became kind of famous, but after. Because now she's already she's got a lot of buzz around her. Her movie that she was in hasn't aired yet, but her play has. And then the movie's also going to air, so it's going to even stack up. So the girl's already doing good for herself. And you get to see how before that, people would look at her, and she was so cold to people because she wasn't thinking of human interactions or making friends. She was thinking of her family life, where people would see her and just see her as like a cold person. And now that she's back in school, she's like, oh, I want to make friends with everyone. Please be friends with me. People are like, what are you doing? Like, you didn't want to be friends with us back then, and you want to be now. And then also now she's popular from her acting, so that's compounded on top of this. It's a really good arc to kind of flesh out her character and how everyone else around her sees her. And I'm really excited for this most recent arc that has started, where it's kind of this competition where two groups of actors and directors are producing the same play. So it's going to be one night, one group is doing it, and the other night, the other group is doing it. And it's kind of to see who is better at portraying the play. Classic fucking shonen setup. It's yielding fantastic results. This series is so far an easy 5 out of 5. If anything I said sounded good, please check it out. Anyone listening. I'm excited if one of you guys would check it out as well. That would be really
I want
good.
to check it out. It's just I look on the Shonen Jump website, and not all the chapters are there. It stops at 6, skips 30 chapters or
This
something.
is exactly why it took me so long to read it. I kept waiting for them to do it, and they just didn't. So what you have to do, it's free on the Viz app. It's also $2 a month to get their whole catalog. It's super worth it. But if you don't want to do that, you can do the first 6 chapters, and then you're gonna have to find scans for the other ones, which aren't hard to find. I can find them for you too if y'all need it. And then, or buy the volumes. That's a thing, I guess. Hey, support your local manga. Hey, I pay for my Viz. I buy all my One Pieces. But and then after I think chapter 60, it comes back. You can start reading it on the Viz. It's it's why it took me so long to jump on it. But that's a good thing to bring up, Joe.
Yeah, because that's what I was thinking too. Is I just wanted to double check with you, that's what you were doing, because I was like, I want to use the Viz app because everything's clear, but they literally don't have the entire story. I would understand if they just stopped. I was like, okay, it's a new series, they want it, but it's literally they go for a few chapters, skip a huge amount of them, and then
So what happened there is that they were doing the first 3 chapters, and then they went a couple more, and then they took it out of it was when they were still doing the magazines every week. And then they switched to the new service that's more like a streaming service where new chapters are added. And then they're like, oh, every current Shonen Jump manga, we're gonna do them. It's not just selective ones that we're gonna translate. We're gonna translate them all. So what this created was this huge gap that I think they're translating for volumes, but they haven't updated. And honestly, it's been so long. I would say don't wait on it. If it sounds interesting, you're gonna have to chase down the sketchy ways. But yeah, that's what I got for Act Age.